well-meaning skeptic. I guess about a week ago, there was some news articles and videos going over, I guess, a recent interview with John Boyega that was part of a Apple documentary special dealing with black actors and actresses that get to being the leads in the movies that they worked in and their experiences and their struggles getting to that point. I haven't seen it. Looks interesting. Maybe I'll get around to it at some point. But I guess what was making the news was John Boyega mentioned his feelings towards toxic Star Wars fans. He was talking about toxic fans are okay with black actors being sidekicks or smaller roles, but are uncomfortable with black actors being the main characters of Star Wars. He also said that Star Wars is one of the whitest IPs or one of the whitest environments in terms of the people on the screen in the Star Wars world and Star Wars galaxy. On one end, there's the narrative that Star Wars fans are the most toxic fan base of all the big IPs. You hear it a lot from people working in Lucasfilm or Disney.
The Star Wars fan base really seems to be the most kind of toxic at the moment.
On the other hand, I've seen on a lot of YouTubers and other people in the Star Wars fan base talking about how they're confused always by these remarks because they felt like they never had an issue with John Boyega being in the movie or being a main character in the movie. They were all excited for John Boyega to be a Jedi. That's kind of how he seemed to be set up in the trailer as maybe being the lead character. So a lot of people were down for that. Now, there are a lot of aspects to it because even with John Boyega's comments, older interviews, he's talked about his issues with Disney. Like he's kind of put his criticism towards Disney, sidelining him for whatever reason.
Don't tease no black. You know what that does to black people? You know how you guys got everybody motivated around Black Panther? Don't tease no and market no Black Panther, market a black actor and switch him, babe.
Switch it, yeah.
You don't do it with white actors. You don't do it. You got white people and black people excited. And then we come in and they in it for 5 minutes. I mean, we can feel it on set. It's like, yeah, we don't need you no more. Bye. Oh, we're not in this? You can feel it.
Will you play the character again?
At this point, I'm cool off it.
First, he seemed to put the focus and the criticism towards Disney. Now it's towards the fans. So it's tough to really say whether it's one of those things where it was a conscious decision to, go along more with the idea that it's really the fans' fault versus the people that made the movie, or maybe he had an issue with both the fans and the studio. Maybe he feels like they're both at fault for the way the Finn character was treated and John Boyega was treated. But, who knows all the different things that John's gone through. I imagine he has dealt with his fair share of racism and just general prejudice and hardships and things that maybe were overt and other things that made him scratch his head and like, was that consciously targeted at me or discriminating towards me? Probably lose your mind a little bit trying to figure that stuff out. So maybe that was, him responding from a place of being triggered. Because a lot of times when an emotional trigger comes up, it can come up without you even really understanding where it's coming from, or it can be confusing for other people too, where it's like, well, how did that come about? How did that come up? I know, it's happened to me and they weren't responsible for what was happening with me, but in the moment I felt like they were, and then they felt like they didn't do anything out of the ordinary or anything wrong. Then you're playing this game of like, well, was it actually harmful what they did, or is it something that was deeper in me that is more about my past than actually what happened in the present? Sometimes a little bit of column A, a bit of column B, a lot of times column A. I don't really know why John now has kind of switched from blaming Disney to now the fans. If maybe just for the documentary, they felt like, let's stick with the safer or the more mainstream narrative. Because I think he probably got pushback from people in the industry when he was criticizing Disney specifically. I thought it was cool that he did, and it is a bit disappointing that now he seems to have changed his stance a little bit. It also just brings up for me the whole thing of toxic fans, toxic people in general. For me, where I'm at right now with that is I see toxic people or toxic fans as a symptom of the way our society and our world is. I think toxic people are acting out of a lot of pain, trauma, neglect, abuse, confusion, fear, resentment, and they don't know how to diffuse it. They don't know how to work through it. They don't know how to grieve it. They don't know how to release it. And so they lash out, throw it out at other people that had nothing to do with it. I believe because they're symptoms, like we have to look at the underlying issues causing people to be that toxic, I guess, that angry, that hateful. For me, I don't see any solution to toxic fans and toxic people until our society radically changes. That's how I feel. Like any symptom to something, it's going to keep coming up until the underlying issues are resolved. That's maybe a whole other video about all the underlying issues creating toxic people, but that's not to say that I'm condoning toxic behavior, rude, abusive, cruel things. It's never okay. Ideally, we wouldn't have these issues. If there's negative emotion there from people, there's a reason for that, I believe. Negative emotions don't just come out of nowhere. So if people are lashing out, there's some underlying hurt there. If we can deal with that, maybe we can resolve the symptom of toxicity toxicity being thrown at people just trying to live their lives and do their best while we're living in such a toxic society, basically, as a whole. You know, there's going to be a lot of toxic waste being thrown at everybody. I don't condone it, but at the same time, I think if we are really serious about eliminating this from happening in the future, I think we got to look at the underlying causes, which I think there are many. That's the route that I think would be the most effective to take in terms of solving things like racism. I think it's unfortunate that John has had to deal with what he has had to deal with. I feel for you, John. I mean, again, I think a lot of fans were really rooting for Finn to be a great character, and I think in general, people were just disappointed by those movies. They were just disappointed by the plot, the writing, the overall, how they connected to the rest of Star Wars. I think there was just so many issues that so many fans had that everyone, I think, working on those movies was probably feeling disappointed in how they turned out and probably feeling a lot of disappointment from fans.
What was your reaction to the end of the movie? I'm not sure what Daisy was looking around.
After 40 years, this is it.
I think his pain and frustration and resentment is legitimate and it's coming from somewhere. But it's unfortunate that he decides to rope in all people. The reason why it's kind of unhelpful is most fans in any group are decent people. They're not the ones that are just vehemently, consistently aggressive and hostile and nasty. I don't think it's helpful to ever label a large group of people by the worst members. Although, again, that goes into another video I think in the future I'd like to make about how it seems like every group, cause, movement, political party will have its toxic members, and how do you avoid that? How do you have some test to vet people? It's like, if you're not this level of emotional intelligence, you can't be part of our fandom or movement or cause. I don't know if any group has ever been able to get around that and figure out a solution to that. So that's a tough one. And that's my initial thoughts on John Boyega's recent interview as part of that Apple documentary. Is there something I'm missing? How else did you feel about what John Boyega said? Was it totally unreasonable? Is it totally nailing the head on the hammer, or nailing the... Did he totally nail it? I'd love to hear your take down in the comments, and I'll see you around, I'm sure. Peace.